Namaskar. A warm welcome to World News and Indian Perspective on All India Radio. This is Abhineet Shukla, bringing glimpses of the major developments of the day from across the globe. Over the next half an hour, we shall bring to you the latest from the world of politics, economy, sports, entertainment and more. The headlines. Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi holds delegation-level talks with his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida in New Delhi. India and Japan signed 2 agreements regarding loan for Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed railway project and cooperation in Japanese language. Labour 20 engagement groups meet in Amritsar calls for plugging gender gap in global workforce. China's President Xi Jinping arrives in Moscow for a 3-day visit. Nepal Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal wins vote of confidence in the parliament. Police initiates action against Khalistan supporters in Australia. Taliban bans Nowruz celebration in Afghanistan's Daikundi. And in boxing, Lavlina Borgohain and Sakshi Chaudhary advanced to quarter-finals of Women's World Boxing Championships in New Delhi. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi held delegation-level talks with his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida in New Delhi on Monday. In his statement after the talks, Mr. Modi said, "This meeting aims to give a voice to the Global South and strengthen the India-Japan relationship."
भारत-जापान स्पेशल स्ट्रेटेजिक एंड ग्लोबल पार्टनरशिप हमारे साझा लोकतांत्रिक मूल्य और अंतर्राष्ट्रीय पटल पर रूल ऑफ लॉ के सम्मान पर आधारित है। इस साझेदारी को मजबूत बनाना हमारे दोनों देशों के लिए तो महत्वपूर्ण है ही, इससे इंडो पैसिफिक क्षेत्र में शांति, समृद्धि और स्थिरता को भी बढ़ावा मिलता है। आज हमारी बातचीत में हमने द्विपक्षीय संबंधों में हुई प्रगति की समीक्षा की।
He highlighted that an important pillar of India's G20 leadership is voicing the priorities of the Global South. Mr. Modi emphasized that this year is unique as India and Japan will hold the presidency of G20 and G7 respectively.
इस साल भारत G20 की अध्यक्षता कर रहा है और जापान G7 की, और इसलिए अपनी अपनी प्राथमिकताओं और हितों पर साथ मिलकर काम करने का यह उत्तम अवसर है। आज मैंने प्रधानमंत्री किशिदा को भारत की G20 अध्यक्षता की प्राथमिकताओं के बारे में विस्तार से बताया। हमारी G20 अध्यक्षता का एक महत्वपूर्ण स्तंभ ग्लोबल साउथ की प्राथमिकताओं को आवाज देना है। वसुधैव कुटुंबकम को मानने वाली संस्कृति सभी को साथ लेकर चलने में विश्वास रखती है।
Mr. Modi said, "It is a great opportunity to work together with common interests and priorities." In 2019, the India-Japan Competitiveness Partnership was established. Prime Minister Modi said, "The theme for Tourism Exchange Year 2023 between India and Japan is connecting the Himalayas with Mount Fuji."
2023 को टूरिज्म एक्सचेंज वर्ष के रूप में मना रहे हैं और इसके लिए हमने कनेक्टिंग हिमालयाज विद माउंट फूजी नाम का थीम चुना है। आज प्रधानमंत्री किशिदा ने मुझे मई महीने में हिरोशिमा से में होने वाली G7 लीडर समिट के लिए निमंत्रण दिया। इसके लिए मैं उनका हृदय से धन्यवाद करता हूं। इसके कुछ महीनों बाद सितंबर में G20 लीडर समिट के लिए मुझे प्रधानमंत्री किशिदा का फिर से भारत में स्वागत करने का अवसर मिलेगा।
During the meeting, both the sides discussed regional and global issues of mutual interest, including the role of India-Japan partnership in fostering peace, prosperity and stability in the Indo-Pacific region. There was a wide-ranging agenda on the table with a focus on cooperation in economy and commerce, climate and energy, defense and security, and skill development. The Japanese Prime Minister arrived in New Delhi on Monday for a 2-day visit to India. He was welcomed by Minister of State for Electronics and IT Rajiv Chandrasekhar on arrival. This is his second visit to India as the Prime Minister. India and Japan have signed 2 documents on the sidelines of the bilateral talks between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida. The agreements include renewal of Memorandum of Cooperation in Japanese language and exchange of notes on JICA loan for 300 billion yen on Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed railway project. Briefing media in New Delhi on Monday, Foreign Secretary Vinay Mohan Kwatra said the two leaders discussed an entire gamut of bilateral issues.
Key topics that were discussed during the meeting, key topics of bilateral cooperation, included the domain of defense and security, economic partnership, climate and energy, including energy transition, people-to-people exchanges, skill development, innovation.
Mr. Kwatra said Prime Minister Modi expressed his desire with Prime Minister Kishida to declare the next year as the year of youth exchange between the two countries. He said Mr. Kishida formally invited Mr. Modi to the G7 Hiroshima summit.
The two leaders also discussed regional issues of significance, including the Indo-Pacific. They also talked about their own respective priorities. Prime Minister explained at length India's priorities for G20, and he heard in turn Prime Minister Kishida's priorities for G7. These two also formed an important component of bilateral conversation.
The Foreign Secretary said that India and Japan have been talking about how the two countries can cooperate on the Act East policy, like how connectivity projects can be built that link India's northeast with the rest of the countries falling under the Act East policy. The Labour 20 Engagement Group's Inception Meet in Amritsar on Monday adopted two joint statements as the final outcome of the two-day deliberations. One calls for resolving the question of portability of social security among G20 nations as the first step towards universalization of social security, and another for plugging the gender gap in the global workforce. The joint statement on universalization of social security stated that the question of portability of benefits within the G20 nations is a low-hanging fruit, which could be addressed by the grouping at no time. The statement pointed out to the BRICS deliberations for an intra-group arrangement in this regard. The joint statement on women and the future of work called for upskilling of women workforce globally to meet the emerging challenges of tech-intensive industry and the post-pandemic job market. The statement asked the governments and employers to shoulder this responsibility. It also called for recalibrating how women in the informal sector and in family-raising roles contribute to global economy and asked for valuing that contribution. The second G20 Sustainable Finance Working Group, that is SFWG, meeting under India's G20 presidency is set to take place in Udaipur, Rajasthan on Tuesday. During the three-day meeting, over 90 delegates from various countries who are members of the G20, as well as those who have been invited by the Indian presidency, along with international organizations, will engage in detailed deliberations on the agreed-upon work plan and priority areas for 2023. SFWG meeting is expected to take forward the discussions over three identified priority areas like mobilization of timely and adequate resources for climate finance, enabling finance for the sustainable development goals, and capacity building of the ecosystem for financing towards sustainable development. On the sidelines of the meeting, two workshops have been planned on the 21st and the 22nd of March. In Maharashtra, Mata Amritanandamayi, spiritual and social leader and chair of Civil 20, that is C20, on Monday said that the future belongs not to single entities but to those who cooperate and mingle. While stressing upon the need of environmental conservation, she appealed everyone must obey the universal law of inclusion. She said, Indian government under the leadership of Prime Minister Modi has accomplished a great deal of progress which is creating a huge transformation. Mata Amritanandamayi was speaking at the inaugural session of C20 Inception meeting in Nagpur on Monday. Deputy Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis, Nobel laureate Kailash Satyarthi, Chairman ICCR Vinay Sahasrabuddhe, former Ambassador and Sherpa C20 Vijay Nambiar were present in the inaugural ceremony of the C20 meeting.
The Civil 20 Group Inception meeting was inaugurated today at Nagpur, Maharashtra. About 250 delegates from 29 countries are participating in the two-day C20 Inception meeting organized under India's G20 presidency. C20 is an official engagement group of the G20. It provides a platform for civil society organizations around the world to voice people's aspirations with the world's leaders in G20. C20 also aims to protect the essence of the sector, promote social and economic development with the vision that no one should be left behind. India is holding the presidency of G20 this year. The logo of C20 depicts the flame of hope, self-motivation and selfless service. The tagline of C20 is, "You are the light." It is a call to every member of civil society to come together, make their own path, find solutions and resolve issues through collective efforts. The Civil 20 India is chaired by spiritual leader Mata Amritanandamayi Devi. The steering committee of Civil 20 India had its first meeting on the 27th of December 2022 and took steps towards a successful and inclusive summit. India has selected the theme Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, One Earth, One Family, One Future for its G20 presidency. It signals the need for unity of purpose and unity of action. The C20 is uniquely structured in a way that it engages more than 800 civil society representatives across the globe, imbibing the principles of G20. Civil society organizations are one of the most effective tools for implementing social change. They are well connected with the masses and try to bridge the gap between citizens and the government. C20 has been recognized as a G20 engagement group since 2013. They play an instrumental role in explaining complex issues to the citizens and providing expertise on various issues to the G20 members. One of the key functions civil society organizations undertake is that they help the G20 group to strike a balance between the economic interests of a country and the interests of the citizens. The C20 group works on the principles of global character, transparency, independence, collaboration, human rights, gender equality and women's empowerment, inclusiveness, continuity and predictability. Similar to the G20, the C20 Steering Committee facilitates dialogue and coordination between civil society organizations from the current, previous and following G20 and C20 host countries. The group works in the format of a troika and consists of a Sherpa whose responsibilities include facilitating fluent and effective dialogue between C20 working group chairs, mainstreaming and developing appropriate areas of work with the C20 chair and co-chair. The C20 Steering Committee ensures that the C20 has an open and diverse environment that facilitates the transmission of a broad range of civil society perspectives to the G20. Under its umbrella, the C20 has several working groups that discuss and develop policy papers that are aimed at generating specific recommendations and policy proposals. Indian society is known for its uniquely dynamic and plural character. Although the Indian approach is quintessentially society-centric at its core, it is also a deeply independent culture which allows autonomous space for society. Because of this innately autonomous way of functioning, Indian thought has flourished over the centuries. The approach relies on non-state initiatives, from temples and dharamshalas to voluntary bodies to educational and welfare institutions seeking to resolve public issues through public participation. India is committed to this path because of the belief in the idea of self-reliance and sustainability, where economic growth, ecological health, personal enlightenment and social well-being go hand in hand. In India, civil society has historically remained independent of political powers and is self-supporting in every aspect. This ethos will permeate during the C20 activities and shift the dynamics between state, society, market, family and individual from conflict and contradiction to cooperation, collaboration and compassionate assistance. Indian philosophical tradition recognizes the importance and limitations of individualism and collective action. Volunteerism, which bridges the gap between these two, is the essential spirit behind civil society in India. As an ideal, volunteerism or selfless service reflects a sense of personal ownership of one's surroundings and a sense of belonging. It represents a democratic, participatory and harmonious way of working together. Volunteerism in India has always been driven by a sense sense of duty and indebtedness to society. This consciousness is beyond the government as each individual develops a personal responsibility for ensuring national and global well-being. The perspective reinforces the role of individual citizens rather than placing the entire burden on the government alone. The C20 in India will thus focus on a uniquely Indian experience of bringing these aspects to the fore. Civil society culture in India has been shaped by illustrious figures such as Mahatma Basaveshwara, Dayanand Saraswati, Ramakrishna Paramahans, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, Mahatma Phule, Lokmanya Tilak, Mahatma Gandhi and Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar. These figures have laid a foundation of self-motivated efforts to provide solutions to social problems. While considering the previous communiques and policy pacts, India's C20 presidency aims to focus on issues ranging from wellness to seva or service and from cyberspace to social justice. C20 will strive towards the realization of the Indian C20 motto, "You are the light." The priority issues of C20 will focus on solving the socio-economic matters which touch the daily lives of the people, which include education, health, environment, technology, and seva or sense of service. The C20 India will conduct regular consultations with national and international civil society organizations to deliberate upon and to structure the priority agenda. Along with this, C20 India will hold regular dialogues with G20 engagement groups along with other key actors to ensure adequate representation of civil society voices and aspirations in the G20 Leaders Summit. The C20 advocacy will generate the C20 policy pack and C20 communique, which will contain the policy recommendations that will be launched at the C20 summit in July 2023.
This is All India Radio giving you the world news. India's Health and Family Welfare Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia has said that digital health is a great enabler in delivery of healthcare services with the potential to support overall universal health coverage targets. Dr. Mandavia said this while addressing the global conference virtually on digital health, taking universal health coverage to the last citizen. He said that national health policies proved instrumental for various path-breaking digital health intervention, ensuring availability, accessibility and affordability and equity of health services. Dr. Mandavia said under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, India aims to launch a global initiative on digital health as an institutional framework. He said this framework aims to converge the global efforts for digital health and scale up digital solutions with use of cutting-edge technologies. A Mexican parliamentary delegation led by President of the India-Mexico Parliamentary Friendship Group, Salvador Caro Cabrera, called on Lok Sabha Speaker Om Birla at Parliament House in New Delhi on Monday. Speaking about the shared historical, cultural and civilizational affinities between the two nations, Mr. Birla said that India and Mexico believe in democratic values which have continually strengthened their ties. He stressed that both the parliaments must continue to share the best practices and experiences from each other. The Lok Sabha Speaker expressed hope that such interactions would continue to take place between the two countries in order to strengthen bilateral cooperation. The first round of India-Gulf Cooperation Council, that is GCC Senior Officers Meeting was held in Riyadh on Monday. The Indian delegation was led by Secretary Consular, Passport, Visa and Overseas Indian Affairs Dr. Ausaf Saeed, while the GCC delegation was led by Assistant Secretary General for Political Affairs and Negotiations Dr. Abdul Aziz bin Hamad Al Owaishak. The meeting had participation from all the 6 member countries of GCC. The meeting was held pursuant to MOU signed on India-GCC mechanism of consultation during External Affairs Minister's visit to Riyadh in September last year. External Affairs Ministry said both the sides conveyed happiness over the progress in trade and investment between India-GCC countries. Both the sides agreed for an early finalization of India-GCC Free Trade Agreement. Dr. Saeed invited for more collaboration between India and GCC countries in renewable energy, food security, health, IT sector and counter-terrorism. Both sides proposed formation of joint working groups to cater to particular areas of cooperation between India and GCC countries. These joint working groups would be headed by experts and would ensure regular and continuous progress across priority sectors. Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Moscow on Monday for a 3-day visit. During his visit, the two sides will discuss strategic cooperation in the energy, military spheres and the Ukraine conflict. Xi said he was happy to be back in Russia after landing at Vnukovo airport and stressed the importance of strong relations between Beijing and Moscow, not just for the nations themselves, but also for the wider international community. The main round of talks, however, will take place on Tuesday. The Russian and Chinese delegations will hold negotiations in an expanded format and are set to sign a dozen documents outlining bilateral cooperation, including two major joint statements. Russian officials previously said that the historic visit, which comes at a time when relations between Moscow and Beijing are at an all-time high, should give new impetus to bilateral ties. China's embassy in the Central African Republic has urged its citizens to avoid traveling outside the capital Bangui after 9 Chinese workers were killed in an attack by militants at a gold mine outside the city. The embassy said in a statement on Monday that there had been many vicious security incidents against workers of foreign mining enterprises in the area, and Chinese citizens still outside Bangui were requested to evacuate immediately. On Sunday, armed men killed 9 Chinese workers and wounded 2 more in an attack on a mine. Meanwhile, Chinese President Xi Jinping has called for severe punishment for the perpetrators in accordance with the law and said that the safety of Chinese citizens must be ensured. Prime Minister of Nepal, Pushpakamal Dahal Prachand, has won the vote of confidence in the House of Representatives. Dahal received 172 votes in the 275-member parliament. This was the second floor test after he took over as the Prime Minister on December 25th last year. A total of 262 lawmakers were present at the vote of confidence and 89 votes were cast against the proposal. More from our Kathmandu correspondent.
In the floor test today in the Parliament of Nepal, Prime Minister Dahal required at least 138 votes to win the trust motion. In the voting process, Nepal Mazdoor Kisan Party remained neutral, while 89 MPs of UML and RPP voted against the motion. As per the constitutional provision of Nepal, the Prime Minister should take a vote of confidence within 30 days after political parties supporting the government withdraw their support. In this regard, the incumbent Prime Minister had to take a vote of confidence on March 26. In the first floor test, Prime Minister Dahal secured over 99% of vote of confidence from the Parliament on 10th January 2023. For a second time, Prime Minister Dahal had to seek a vote of confidence after he entered into a different equation in the presidential election, forming a 9-party coalition supporting the Nepali Congress presidential candidate. Shweta Singh for World News, Kathmandu.
Newly elected Vice President Ram Sahai Prasad Yadav has received the oath of office and secrecy. President Ramchandra Paudel administered the oath of office and secrecy to newly elected Vice President Yadav amidst a special ceremony at the office of the President, Sheetal Niwas, on Monday. Yadav was elected the Vice President of the country on the 17th of March. On the occasion, Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal Prachand, Speaker Debraj Ghimire, National Assembly Chair Ganesh Timil Sinha and other dignitaries were present. Australia's Victoria Police has released images of Khalistani supporters who indulged in violence on the 29th of January. In a statement, the Victoria Police appealed to identify 6 men. The targeted attack took place during a program organized by the Sikhs for Justice. The men from pro-Khalistani groups attacked Indians. The Indian group was seen running away from the scene while the Khalistani group continued to hit them. Earlier this month, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Anthony Albanese had discussed disturbances created by pro-Khalistani outfits in Australia, and the Australian Prime Minister assured that his government will take all necessary measures to ensure that peace and harmony prevail. Beginning 2023, Hindu temples in Australia have seen a spurt in vandal attacks by Khalistani elements, defacing the walls with anti-India slogans and graffiti. The Indian intelligence agencies have warned about a rise in the activities by the ISI-backed Khalistan elements. Taliban have banned the festival of Nowruz in the central Daikundi province, warning residents if they are caught celebrating the occasion, they will be treated accordingly. The Taliban's Ministry for the Propagation of Virtue and the Prevention of Vice in an announcement said that Taliban observers visited at least 35 mosques in Daikundi and asked people to resist the Western ideas and rituals. The popular festival was also banned during the Taliban's previous rule between 1996 to 2001. Banning the Nowruz celebration which marks the arrival of spring in Daikundi, prompted widespread criticisms. Nowruz celebration is one of the ancient rituals of the people of Afghanistan, being celebrated in different ways similar to other countries. Domestic share markets on Monday snapped 2 days of winning streak to end over 0.5% lower amid mixed global cues. However, the key indices pared losses, making sharp recovery from intraday losses. The fall in domestic equities was attributed to worry among investors about contagion risks in the global banking system, despite a historic Swiss-backed acquisition of troubled Credit Suisse by UBS Group offering some relief. A report from the business desk.
Sensex at the Bombay Stock Exchange slipped 361 points or 0.62% to close at 57,629. Nifty at the National Stock Exchange dropped 112 points or 0.65% to end at 16,988. Most stocks in Asia declined despite coordinated efforts by global central banks to ease a fast-growing banking crisis. In Asian markets, stocks of Hong Kong's Hang Seng slumped the most, tumbling 2.7%. Japan's Nikkei 225 and Singapore's Straits Times declined 1.4% each. South Korea's Kospi fell 0.7% and China's Shanghai Composite shed 0.5%. European stocks bounced off initial losses to trade in positive territory in intraday trade. Oil prices fell to their lowest in 15 months. In intraday trade, Brent crude was trading at around $71.88 per barrel. Back home, gold price at multi-commodity exchange for April contracts was trading at around 59,775 rupees per 10 grams. Silver was trading at around 68,745 rupees per kilogram for May contracts when reports last came in. Lalema Aneja Dang for World News, All India Radio.
In boxing, Lavlina Borgohain and Sakshi Chaudhary have advanced to the quarterfinals of Women's World Boxing Championships at the Indira Gandhi Sports Complex in New Delhi on Monday. Lavlina beat Vanessa Ortiz of Mexico in the 75 kg category, while Sakshi notched a 5-0 unanimous decision win against Shazira Uragbayeva of Kazakhstan in the 52 kg category. The 4th Asian Kho-Kho Championship for men and women has begun in Buxa district of Assam on Monday. The event will conclude on the 23rd of this month. The Chief of Bodoland Territorial Region, Pramod Bodo, Assam Handloom Minister U.G. Brahma, and the office bearers of the Kho-Kho Federation were present in the opening ceremony. Altogether, 9 countries, India, Bangladesh, South Korea, Malaysia, Nepal, Bhutan, Iran, Sri Lanka and Indonesia have participated in the competition. Matches are being held on a league-cum-knockout basis, while the contesting teams have been placed in 4 groups. Now, let us take a look at the major developments around the world as reported in the foreign press. The Guardian writes, French government faces no confidence votes over Macron pension plans. The Washington Post writes, world is on the brink of climate calamity. The Globe and Mail reports UBS buys crisis-stricken Credit Suisse. The Financial Times writes, South African military deployed to prevent planned national shutdown. South China Morning Post says, Kuwait oil firm declares state of emergency after leak. A quick look at the headlines once again. Prime Minister of India Narendra Modi holds delegation-level talks with his Japanese counterpart Fumio Kishida in New Delhi. India and Japan signed 2 agreements regarding loan for Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed railway project and cooperation in Japanese language. Labour 20 engagement groups meet in Amritsar calls for plugging gender gap in global workforce. China's President Xi Jinping arrives in Moscow for a 3-day visit. Nepal Prime Minister Pushpakamal Dahal wins vote of confidence in the parliament. Police initiates action against Khalistan supporters in Australia. Taliban bans Nowruz celebration in Afghanistan's Daikundi. And in boxing, Lavlina Borgohain and Sakshi Chaudhary advanced to quarter-finals of Women's World Boxing Championships in New Delhi. And now before we end, let us listen to Mahatma Gandhi's favorite bhajan Vaishnav Jan by artists from Tunisia on their Independence Day. पीर पराई जाने रे वैष्णव जाना तो तेरी कायज पीर पराई जाने रे
पार दुख उपकार करे तुए माने अभिमाने नाने रे वैष्णव जन तो.
And with that, we end this bulletin. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow with the next edition of World News.